Good evening, everyone. Today we'll be continuing our discussion by answering the controversial question, do vaccines play a role in causing autism? First, we'll start by talking about the science behind the Wakefield claims that started the controversy and led to the vaccine scare. From there, we'll look into future prospects and solutions, and then integrating our topic with other issues, and finally presenting our learning tool. So, through his paper and conferences, Wakefield suggested and emphasized two major points. The first being that gastrointestinal inflammation was caused by the live measles virus present in the MMR vaccine. And the second being that the gastrointestinal inflammation caused intestinal permeability that enabled neurotoxic peptides found in foods like gluten and dairy products that reached the brain, causing autism. But the scientific community was very quick to refute these claims with their own data and the fact that Wakefield's results were not reproducible. For instance, Faisal et al. In 1998 tested the first claim by studying 30 subjects which had been previously exposed to the measles virus via the wild type or the vaccine. Some of these subjects had bowel diseases and some of them did not. And in order for Wakefield's claims to be true, what we had to have found was that those with bowel diseases had to have the measles virus present in their system, calculated through measles-specific antibodies. However, that was not seen in patients with bowel diseases, thus indicating that the measles virus present in the vaccine did not cause gastrointestinal disturbance. Now, Wakefield's second claim that gastrointestinal inflammation caused autism was dismissed by a study by Platola et al. In 1998, which looked and reviewed records of vaccine side effects over a 14-year period. And what they analyzed was that within this designated time frame, none of the subjects that were diagnosed with gastrointestinal inflammation following vaccination with the MMR vaccine ever ended up with autism. Now, while these scientific studies were being accumulated, an investigative reporter named Brian Deere discovered that Wakefield had actually been paid by a lawyer to prove that vaccines caused autism, and this was done for a lawsuit against MMR manufacturers. Now, with regards to the research, it was discovered that the subjects were actually handpicked for the study and that much of the data was tampered with. For instance, all of the medical histories of the subjects were either deemed false or distorted, while many of the tests that actually indicated subject normality were not reported at all. In addition, it was found that the tests that were being conducted were not approved by the hospital's ethics committee. So ultimately, these findings led to the retraction of the study in 2010 and to the loss of Wakefield's medical license. Now, in terms of the effect that this study had, we saw a dramatic impact on global MMR immunization rates. In particular, British rates dropped from 92% in 1998 to a staggering 73% in 2008. They also saw measles outbreaks, as well as the first measles-related death in a decade, and then the fear that communicable diseases that were once controlled were now re-emerging. In Canada, we saw a slight decrease from 93% in 1998 to 89% in 2008, while in America, 50% of parents with children with autism believed that MMR was causing autism, which is something that's still echoed today. Now I'll pass it on to Reza to discuss thimerosal in this controversy.
Thank you, everyone. Now, thimerosal is an organomercury-based compound that is widely used by pharmaceutical companies as a preservative. In Canada today, we have two vaccines that contain thimerosal. One of them is the influenza vaccine, and the other one is the hepatitis B vaccine. Now, what is the association between thimerosal and autism? Thimerosal, when metabolized in the body, turns into ethylmercury. Now, due to the lack of information regarding the long-term effects of ethylmercury, we use data from methylmercury and base our results on that. Okay, so these two compounds are very different and they have different properties. So methylmercury, when ingested, completely gets absorbed by the small intestine and is mistaken by the body as methionine. Once it's mistaken as methionine, it is taken up by the body and it is allowed to be freely transported. It can pass the blood-brain barrier and it can even pass the placenta. Hence, methylmercury is extremely dangerous, and it can accumulate in the body because it has a half-life greater than a month. Now, ethylmercury, on the other hand, does not accumulate in the body because it has a half-life of less than a month. A study conducted by University of Rochester examined the level of ethylmercury in infants and newborns after they were immunized. They used the guidelines for methylmercury to predict the estimated level of ethylmercury that should be present in the blood and the stool. And what they observed was there was significantly lower level of ethylmercury in the blood and significantly higher level of ethylmercury in the stool, so it was being excreted faster. Therefore, they concluded that thimerosal does not metabolize the same way as methylmercury-containing compounds. Another study that we looked at compared the association between thimerosal-containing vaccines and autism. Now, this study was conducted in Denmark, and they used all newborns all the way from 1990 all the way up to 1996, and each of these individuals was either treated with thimerosal-containing vaccines or thimerosal-free vaccines. So as you can see, in this period of time, there were 407 cases of autism, and out of those, 303 cases occurred in individuals who did not receive thimerosal-containing vaccines. And similarly, autism spectrum disorders, so disorders similar to autism, there were 751 cases, and 430 of them again occurred in individuals who did not receive thimerosal-containing vaccines. Therefore, the authors were unable to find any conclusive evidence to form a correlation between autism and thimerosal.
So what's our position now? Well, after gathering information about Wakefield and thimerosal, again, we still do not believe there's a concrete link between vaccines and autism. However, far more research is needed in the etiology of autism. Now, one future topic within the etiology of autism is epigenetics. Epigenetics refers to a study of a gene regulation expression that is caused by mechanisms other than changes in the DNA sequence. So in simpler terms, environmental factors can cause changes in the DNA expression. So what that means is that environmental modifications to our genes can be inherited and therefore passed on to the next generation. So with respect to autism, what does that mean? Well, we know that a lot of environmental factors have been associated to autism. So what that means is that we can possibly look at some of these, or perhaps we can alter some of these epigenetic expressions and maybe, just maybe, provide a treatment for autism. So, given that epigenetics promises much for the future, what we need to look at are some of the potential solutions and suggestions. So, we know there's a lack of an association between vaccines and autism. So what we need to do is we need to present the information in an informative, personal, and emotional and compelling way. These two items right here are items that we've compiled, which is a pamphlet and a poster. And it also has our website information, and we plan on distributing them to doctors' offices just to increase awareness. And now I'll pass it off to Nida, who will be speaking about the integration component.
Thank you, Ibrahim. With our samples in autism integration, we found some interesting information. A prolonged exposure to radiation leads to an increased risk of getting seizures. So we came across a drug called Depakote, which is an anti-seizure medicine containing valproic acid. And there was a case study conducted in 57 children of women who took this drug during pregnancy. And they found that 11% of the children developed autism, and even more developed symptoms of disorder just short of a diagnosis. So this drug can increase the risk of autism. For our next integration, we took a global and health perspective with regards to the effect of autism worldwide. So the perspective of autism in Western world is largely influenced by media, whereas the perspective of autism in third world countries is largely influenced by religion, culture, and tradition. For example, in Africa, the individuals with developmental disorders are considered to be possessed with an evil spirit. So, with regards to awareness of the disease, the data for the rates of prevalence is insufficient. So the awareness is also insufficient because of lack of research. As well, treatments of individuals is insufficient because there's not enough individuals who have the knowledge to be able to treat these individuals with autism. And also, governmental interventions are limited. Now I'll pass it on to Adam for the other interventions.
Thanks, Ella. Okay, so looking at our integration with Team Foodies, we wanted to look at agricultural pesticides, since pesticides have actually been implicated in having neurological effects on the body. A study conducted by Roberts in the Public Health Institute of California looked at maternal pesticide exposure during gestation and the development of autism spectrum disorders. So this retrospective developmental disorder looked at 465 children who were born between 1996 and 1998, and they assessed all these children were born with autism spectrum disorders, and then they assessed their level of pesticide exposure. Their findings showed that the correlation was strongest for those who resided in areas in which pesticides were more widely used. But the researchers themselves suggested that further research should still be conducted in order to solidify this link. Looking at our integration with the team back at Mac, we wanted to link autism to the important effect of antioxidants in preventing free radicals. Something interesting to note is that one of the biomarkers used to confirm the diagnosis of autism is that of lipid peroxidation. This is essentially the imbalance of oxidation and reduction in the body, which leads to an increase in the amount of free radicals. In autistic patients, the increase in the free radicals can be attributed to many factors, including a decrease in the amount of antioxidants. Antioxidant therapy has actually been used with autistic patients, and claims have been made stating that this therapy actually improves the clinical performance of the autistic patients in their speech and their cognition. But these claims have never been scientifically proven, so further research is also required in this area. So now we're going to take a look at our learning tool. What we noticed through our research is that there's a great deal of misconceptions about this topic. So we wanted to make it our aim to try to help and clear up these misconceptions. Using a website, we're able to portray our information in a clear and concise manner. And also, we're able to start the discussion through our comment section on each of our posts. Some of the great information available on our website includes the video of our proposal presentation, videos of all of our interviews with Dr. Dai, Dr. Day, and Dr. Jacobs. And also we have an interview with Marge Giroux of the bio department, who actually has an autistic child herself, and she gave us her insight and her personal experiences. The one last thing I wanted to note was a survey we created to see what the general McMaster population thinks about the issue. And we just basically compiled all the responses into one video in which you guys can take a look and see what people from different faculties actually think and know about the issue. I encourage you all to take a look at our website and all of our videos to understand this different perspective. And I'll pass it off to Ibrahim, who will conclude our presentation.
So the link between vaccines and autism will continue to be associated until the scientific community is effectively able to communicate to the public. As we've learned in some of our interviews with Dr. Day, Dr. Dye, and Dr. Richards, scientific journalism is a viable option to bridge the gap between the public and scientific journals. So, until that point in time, misinformed parents will delay the immunizations of their children and place them at risk for a preventable disease. So I'm here to ask you to do your part. Educate yourself about the issue, and most importantly, share your knowledge with others. Because it's only through education and awareness that we can make a difference in this world. And last but not least are our references. We've divided them into 4 different categories. So the first category deals with disproving Wakefield's claims. I actually suggest that you read the Wakefield study, even though it was retracted, just to get a better knowledge base about the issue. The second category deals with thimerosal, which is what Reza spoke about. The third category deals with solutions and suggestions, which I spoke about, including epigenetics. And finally, the integration, which I'm sure most of you are interested in. All this information is available on our website, which is www.autismandvaccines.wordpress.com. And I encourage you to post any of your questions on Avenue, and we look forward to answering them. Thank you very much.